And he kind of like,
Okay.
you know, I don't know anything about it, you know. Just,
Wow.
so he was more like a hypocrite. Really.
Yeah. Huh. So it's almost like he knew, and then he acted like he didn't know after executing this.
He was actually. They proved that he was part Jewish.
Right? Yeah. I read about that on his mother's side or something.
Der Führer. Well, he's just a kind of an impotent kind of antisocial kind of person that apparently spoke very clearly and could rivet a crowd.
Yeah.
Bang his fist and you know that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even to this day, they won't talk about. I had an office in Germany.
Yeah.
I lived in Italy for 10 years, and I would fly to Germany.
Yeah.
If you talk about the Nazi Party, they do not want to talk about it.
Yeah,
Older people, young people, they do not talk about it.
In Germany?
Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's illegal to speak well of them.
You could talk to, have a great conversation with somebody. As soon as they bring up the Nazi Party, Hitler, it shuts down everything.
That proves two things. It proves they don't want to talk about it, but it proves they remember what it is. They know what it is,
right.
and because of that, the embarrassment makes them not want to talk about it. So I'm mixed about that. I believe in free speech,
right.
But I think people also have the right to close down a conversation that they're involved in if somebody brings up something that's so terribly painful to them personally. So I don't know. Who's to know? So anyway, so you remember back in December of 2009, and we started off that first show with the three guys in the bar. There was she's a licensed massage therapist, and her dad's a general practitioner, a great one in Bethel, Dr. Volpatesta. But there were three doctors in a bar. There was a something, and a something. I forget what they were.
Okay.
But we're going to have to start this one out with. There were three former presidents in a bar.
Oh, okay.
There was and we play into that with our discussion before we went on the air. There was Bill Clinton, and who cares who the other two were, because Bill Clinton takes all the oxygen out of a room anyway. He's the only one that. Oh. Good evening. Welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. I'm tonight's host, along with Emily Volpentesta, co-host.
Thank you.
I'll let our guest introduce himself. He's got a great story to tell about none other than Bill Clinton. And then we're going to speak a little bit about a great shop that he and his family have up on Stony Hill Road in Bethel called Knotch.
Up a notch.
Up a notch.
Up a notch. Thank you. Up a notch. Where and what caught my eye with the article in the News Times about this was that I just came back. Kristen and I just got back from a cross-country tour. Some of that time was on Route 66 in Arizona, and there are some great shops very similar to a shop which we have locally. You don't have to drive to Arizona to see a shop with some great curiosity items, some marvelous stuff.
Americana.
Thank you, yeah. Americana. It's right here in Bethel, up on Stony Hill Road. But introduce yourself. Tell us about Bill Clinton first. That'll take all the oxygen out of the room immediately.
My name is Doug Hall. Bill Clinton I met several years ago. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she would sing in a church in Chappaqua. So I would take her down, drop her off, and I'd go to this local bar in Chappaqua as she would sing. So one night I go there, and this is two shady-looking people standing outside. And I walk into the bar, and there's nobody there except one gentleman. And he goes to excuse himself and goes to the bathroom. And the bartender was all excited about this person being there, and I didn't understand why he was so excited. So he comes back, and we're talking for a while, and his voice, it was somebody you recognized, but you couldn't put a handle on it. And we were talking for about a half an hour, and he goes back to the bathroom, and the bartender's still all excited, and I go, "Who is this guy?" He says, "You don't know who this guy is?" I go, "No." He says, "That's Bill Clinton." And I said, "Bill Clinton?" And I said, "Like the president?" He goes, "Yeah."
could you not have recognized him?
Well, you know, it was one of those people like you could almost tell you who his name is, but you couldn't tell.
Yeah, and the voice is the voice is a clear giveaway, I guess.
And he had lost a lot of weight recently too.
Well, no, this was several years ago.
Oh,
He
okay.
was about after his presidency. So he comes back, and I said, "Excuse me, Bill." I said, "You weren't the president of the United States, were you?" He goes, "Yeah, I've been told that."
I've been told that.
I said, "No, really? Were you president?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I never expected to come to a bar and see the president at the bar." But he was very, very nice. We had a nice conversation, and I said, "Oh, by the way, who are the shady people out there? Is that Secret Service?" He goes, "Yeah, that's my Secret Service."
Yeah, that's right. Former presidents get the Secret Service Secret Service coverage forever, for a lifetime. And that did used to be a big issue because pretty soon, generally after presidents leave office, pretty soon they're dead. Because the office apparently takes an awful lot out of them. Being president's a pretty difficult job.
I guess.
But nowadays you've got, let me think now, who's left alive? Let's see. Jimmy Carter's alive. Ronald Reagan's dead. Jimmy Carter's alive.
Both Bushes.
George W. Bush. George H.W. Bush is alive.
Both Bushes. Obama.
Bill Clinton's alive. George W. Bush. And, of course, the current president, Barack Obama. So that's a lot of folks that are going to be around for years getting Secret Service protection after they've been out of office.
Well, see, they have the right for Secret Service, but they could deny it too.
Huh.
You don't have to have Secret Service. They could turn it down. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
I forget what one president turned it down, but you can.
Oh, the president themselves actually turned it down rather than so it's available to any former president.
Any former president.
Okay, but they have to specifically say they don't want it. Okay, interesting. So tell us about your shop. What do you have up there? We're going to go up there and do a show up there soon, and we're going to actually take the camera through and see a lot of this stuff. But give us a little visualize for us what you got up there, some of the specific items you have that people should be interested in taking a look at and at least enjoying, and certainly they're available for purchase too. Go ahead.
Okay, it's basically for the majority of the items we have in the store. It's a personal collection, about 40 years of collecting. And it's not one particular thing. I just would go out and go to auctions, garage sales, flea markets, whatever I thought it was interesting and unique. So I would buy it. And when I started out, I would display it. It would be some signage, some knickknacks, small things. So I would put it up, but after a while, it just gets to a point you can only put out so much and display stuff. So I would go out and I would buy something and I'd put it away in the closet. Year after year, I started from a closet to a basement to an attic to a warehouse. I have like 4 warehouses. And
interesting.
That is a great collection. Wow.
And a couple years ago, I left my job, and I was looking for another job. And my wife, who was working at the time, quit her job. And she says, "Well, we need to get new jobs." And we had talked about this a little bit, opening a thrift and consignment store. And she says, let's open the store. Let's work for ourselves. Let it be our own destiny. I said, okay. I said, I have enough merchandise to do this. So we decided to get a store. We looked around. We're from New York.
Yep.
We looked around. We came about the store one day in Bethel. We drove by and looked at it. It was a quiet little place, and we liked it. So we decided to open. But some of the stuff we have it's really a variety of everything and anything. From toys to signs to clothing to like hummels, small stuff, big stuff, coins, baseball memorabilia. So I like to be a good mixture of everything. We're not just one particular thing. We have some modern stuff. We have some antiques. So if you're looking for an antique, something modern, we can't please everybody. But what we have is try to be a little bit of everything. Our customers come in the store. And I like to talk to them. I like to get feedback on them. You know, what are you looking for? What is your interest? Okay, so this way I some people tell me they like toys, and I got tons of toys at home. So I'll bring toys into the shop, you know, to help accommodate them. Or they say I love old signs. I have thousands of old signs, so I bring it in there. So I can't please everybody, but I try to please a little bit of everything for everybody.
Imagine walking into a museum, and at the end of your visiting the museum, you could actually purchase some of the cool stuff that you see there.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, or it was either Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, the metal signs. That was it. I think maybe is it Shell Oil? You have a sign for an antique sign, a root beer, kind of an obtuse brand of root beer. You have a sign for in there?
Called Frosty. They were
Frosty root beer. Yeah,
they were big in the Midwest. They closed down somewhere in the mid to late 50s. The sign I have is like a prototype. For example, I have these very huge sign. It's shaped as a bottle cap. And what happened is back then they would make these signs and they would bring it to like a store like you had a little deli or a convenience store.
Yeah.
The problem with back then is there were so many vendors. I would bring you a big sign. Coke would bring you a big sign. This week you had no room to do it.
Oh, interesting.
So what happened is they made some of the big signs for the bigger stores, and then they started downsizing.
Yeah.
Like I have a particular Coke sign, which is very hard to find that size because nobody could display it. So they only made a limited amount for big stores, and the little stores, they downsized it the same pattern, but in a smaller sense. But like these signs, I collected
the history, the Americana, as you said, Americana.
Right.
Just great stuff. Continue.
Like these signs I bought 40 years ago, and they've been in storage ever since. You know, and you know, I'll look, I'll see something, and I tend to, I'm like the show, the pickers in a way. I go through bonds, estate sales. If there was an old home, I rush for the first place I look is the basements and the attics.
Yeah.
Because usually it's something that's been packed away for years. Sometimes I find the best things under dust in a corner.
Right.
So it's like Cracker Jacks. You open up, you never know what you find.
You never know.
What's been the most exciting thing that you found?
Oh,
that's going to be a tough choice. Probably literally hundreds of things. Yeah.
I went through a barn up in Michigan years ago, and there was an estate sale, and they said basically they just opened the door and it's like whatever you see in the house is for sale. Wow. So it was like you haven't touched your house, and it was the way it was. It wasn't packed. And they had a big barn outside. I said, you know, I like to look in the attics and the barns. Like I said, I find usually the best things packed away. And I went in the barn, and I went upstairs in the loft in the barn, and they had a few items. And in the corner, there was a window, and I just happened to look out the window. I put my hand on one of the boards, and the board was loose. And I found a 1920s Tommy gun somebody put up there.
Wow.
And they figured the great-grandfather back then must have hid it up there.
Huh?
Yeah, those are the guns that were outlawed as we've been trying to outlaw the Kalashnikovs, the AK-47s, and other guns that you can, you know, literally murder 30 people in a minute or two.
Oh,
but Tommy guns were actually outlawed.
Right.
I think in the 1930s, because principally they were in the hands of
Bonnie and Clyde.
Gangsters. It was a gangster gun.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you find these estate sales in newspapers, online, like do you
sometimes driving by, sometimes on the internet, driving by. I've helped tear down houses. I find coins in the walls, stuff on the floorboard. So it's you know, you go in there with no expectation, and it's like when you start going through stuff, sometimes you just nobody's known it for years.
That's amazing.
So when you stop in the store and take the opportunity to look at some of the things in there, you don't just have the opportunity to buy an item. You have the opportunity to buy a story that goes along with that item.
Right.
And so you can pass that story off. It goes from being the story of the store to being your story also. And a little bit of history becomes available to you to display in your own home. Something that people will come and sit down in your kitchen perhaps and say, wow, what is that?
Right.
And hear the story, the lore that's been passed along, not just from generation to generation, but from family to family about some of these cool items.
Sometimes the story is almost as exciting as the item itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, like I said, we try. I'm always getting new stuff every day. I always looking. Like I say, if I see something interesting, I'm buying every day. I've got people call me every day, and I try to rotate things in our store, so it's try to be different, not the same. I really don't want you to come in and 6 months later it looks exactly the same. Nothing's been sold. You know, I change things around, make it fresh. I make it. People to come in regularly say, hey, I don't remember this. I don't remember this. This was over here. Or
so it's better than a museum in that respect, that you always know you're going to go in there a few months later or a few weeks later, and you're going to see a lot of different stuff that you didn't see the last time through.
Yep. I've had people come in since we opened, and a gentleman just came in the other day, and he saw a poster I had, and he was thrilled about it. He walked in, and he's like, I'm buying this right away.
Wow.
And he says, I've never seen this before. I said, just got it, just came in like 2 days ago.
Huh.
So we're going to actually segue from that story into Emily and I decided to talk about do a little summer movie review, or perhaps since I haven't seen any movies, this is the only movie I've seen this summer so far is in the Bethel Library. And by the way, the Bethel Library has a great summer film festival. They'll show an old movie, and you go there for free and sit down and bring your popcorn and settle in and watch a movie. And this is the movie that I saw. It was as you might imagine, Jaws.
And how fitting that in the Great Outer Banks, someone was eaten half, in critical condition, bitten by a shark this past weekend recently, right?
Yeah, it happens occasionally. I mean, the more people that are in the water, the more likelihood.
So fitting that you saw Jaws. And I thought of you when I heard this weekend on the news. I was just out on Long Island visiting friends, and on the news they're saying that someone was bitten by a shark. I thought, oh, how fitting that it's summer, and
it's a great summer movie. It's a great summer movie.
So watch out for those sharks.
Yeah, you can get it. Now, if you don't want to venture in the water, but you want to have the excitement of being devoured by a man-eater, you can take Jaws from the library, or on any of the traditional Netflix, YouTube, any of those places you can find it. But have you seen any movies this summer, either of you?
I saw Jurassic Park or Jurassic World.
Jurassic World, okay.
I saw the Brian Wilson Beach Boys movie.
Okay.
That was good. I liked that.
Is that the one that was at the Bethel movie house? I saw one of the movies they showed that was about the backup musicians.
Ah.
The backup musicians for literally all of the groups, all the groups, you name them.
Yeah.
They used the same cadre of musicians as their backup band in the studio. And the musicians themselves would actually write as they were going along, as they were recording a song and going through takes of it. They would actually write the background music. They were that clever and that adept at actually creating background music for all the Beach Boys songs, the Motown songs, you name it. If it was in the 50s and 60s and 70s, Glenn Campbell was one of those musicians. Just an amazing group of people that were there and dreamt up the accompanying music kind of as they went along. But I heard about the Beach Boys movie too. I didn't see that, but that
it's good.
Yeah.
You don't really think about the people behind the music.
Well, a lot of these groups, like the Beach Boys, wrote for the Beatles.
Yeah.
You start looking at some of these bigger groups, and they wrote for other groups.
Yeah. A lot of
Recently, I didn't
collaboration.
know. Yeah, a lot of cooperation.
A lot of collaboration.
Do you have music at your store? 45s, records?
We got records at the store. Probably got 5,000 records at home. I have a jukebox at home.
Oh my goodness. So you're a collector.
I'm a fine line between collection and hoarding.
She's a collector extraordinaire.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a hoarder extraordinaire. Or both.
You know, you get to a point where you're collecting, and it depends who's
Right.
determines, are you a collector
I'm
or are
a
you a
hoarder.
hoarder? So before you go into that realm of hoarding, I said, you know, it's
It's a fine line.
you know, collecting for 40 years is nice. You know, it's
Yeah.
the items are nice, and I like the items, but it's the adventure of finding them and taking them in.
Right.
But the downfall is when you collect for 40 years, like I was saying before, you can't display everything. So you put stuff away and you put stuff away, and after if you do this for years, like I did,
Yeah.
there's been stuff even recently I've pulled out, and I'm like, I don't remember this, or I remember this 20 years ago, and it's sitting in the closet. And you know, before I get too old and somebody comes in and just takes all my stuff and sells it,
Yeah.
Right.
which happens to a lot of people. A lot of kids that come in, their parents have passed away. They collected humbles. I had one woman that came in and said her mother collected humbles for years and years, thousands of them. She didn't know, and they get overwhelmed. They're like, what do we do with all this stuff?
What are they? Humbles?
Hummels.
Hummels.
They're porcelain figurines
Oh.
from Germany.
Oh, wow. Huh.
And they're highly regarded for the detail and the incredible detail work
Interesting.
in them.
Huh.
But the things, traditionally things like dancers and things of that nature,
Right.
just highly regarded, not because they're old, not
Right.
because they're rare, but because they're
Just the quality
so
of it.
the quality.
Right,
They're
right.
so finely done. Now it makes sense that a lot of really, really good stuff ends up in a garage or in a barn or in a closet, and gets forgotten about because, you know, well, how many of us put things in our closets or clothes in our closets and find them again years later and say, oh, that's where that was. That's why we have huge closets nowadays, so we can
Well,
accumulate a lot of stuff.
well, speaking of things found in barns, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci was found in a barn that was used as Mussolini's, you know, stables during World War II.
My goodness,
you know,
yeah,
and
the Nazis
by some
and the,
miracle,
Yeah.
that the whole area where it was found, I think it was in Milan, but the whole area around it was bombed, and it was by some miracle the one standing structure that was not destroyed. And the fact that the Last Supper survived was just, you know, it's just the fact that it survived is a miracle. So talk about finding things in barns.
Yeah, the
you know.
fascists and the Nazis, they
Yeah, the
stole
artwork.
a lot of artwork.
Yeah, they made movies about that. Yeah.
at least one small glimmer of positivity to it, and there's not much to either of those groups,
Right.
is that they put stuff away and generally in a safe place.
Churches.
So once the war was over,
Yeah.
those fantastic pieces of art were still survived.
Yeah, and
could be
some-
brought back out again.
Well, they say some artists still, they believe it's still around. They, I think what countries they were, but where they were looting the art, they would keep them in these like salt tunnels, you know, preservation. There's some part of the tunnels that were blown up. They can't excavate because the tunnel would collapse, but they believe that some of the treasures are still buried in these tunnels.
Wow. Or some churches in Rome, you know, when I was in Italy, that during the wars that people would hide things in paintings in churches, like diamonds and to keep these treasures they'd be from being stolen. They would hide them in artwork, churches. It's just, that's why I asked what was the most exciting thing that you've unearthed or found in some unlikely place, because I'm sure you've seen things that have just remained hidden for years.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
sometimes, you know, people like years ago, people like barns. They would love to hide things in barns. You know,
Yeah.
coins, jewelry.
Yeah, paintings.
You know,
Yeah, sure.
it's amazing what sometimes you find an old barn falling apart, and you take a board apart, and it's some kind of treasure behind it. Somebody hid years ago and forgot about.
Yeah.
And in the case of things like, for instance, baseball cards, it's only by the miracle of everybody else's mom throwing out their kids' baseball cards
No, it's true.
that they're rare.
Yeah.
Now, those are not exactly what you would call works of art or things of any import or any value, except for the fact that there aren't very many of them left. So they're rarities, and in that respect, they're they're kind of cool to look at because you're not going to see them every day. But a lot of stuff that becomes rare only by the fact that most of the copies of it get thrown out.
Or they if you collected baseball cards as a kid, you stop. Your parents either threw them away, they put them in a box in the attic, and it's been sitting up there for years. And the parents pass away or move, and they open this box, and here it is 40 years later, all these cards. Sometimes it was like that, like my collection. I'm looking at stuff I don't remember buying. Some stuff I totally forgot, and it's nice I like to collect, and I'll probably do it to the day I'm gone.
Right.
But I'm to the point in my life. What I got tons of stuff. What do I do? I should keep collecting to the point somebody has to take over for me when I go. I rather, at this point in my life, show everybody, because a lot of people come into our store and say, I haven't seen that in years, or wow, I didn't know that was still around. And let somebody else enjoy it.
Yeah.
I had my enjoyment. I had fun getting it, and now it's it's time to pass it on.
It is. It's nice to be able to share things with people and reminisce about some things. And the past always is a great source of interesting discussion. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back in just a moment. Actually, we're going to come back at noon 30 tomorrow, and we're going to do another show. We're going to talk about a couple of recent Supreme Court decisions. And we're going to keep you guessing as far as what those two are. Although I'm pretty sure you have a good idea
what they are.
They are. But this is Progressive Soup, and it's been a pleasure having you with us this evening. We're on YouTube, Kristen 40, Kristin 40. Quick plug for the cat of all cats who's been lurking in the background, Basil Budacat.
Right.
Basil's show is on Basil Budacat on Facebook. On Basil Budacat, his show's there. And also on Kristen 40 on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon 30. Good night.
Good night.